Hello, and welcome to the Nebraska Department of Education Positive Behavior Intervention and Support 10-Minute Tidbit. Today's topic, what is PBIS? My name is Heather Robbins, and I'll be your host through these 10-minute tidbits. First, let's take a moment to reflect on the purpose of these 10-minute tidbits. Our purpose here is to help Nebraska school teams with initial installation, initial implementation, and full implementation of PBIS on their campuses. We hope that these short video clips help you. What is PBIS? By the end of today's brief session, we hope that you're able to describe PBIS and how it fits within the MTSS framework, that you can identify critical features of PBIS, and that you examine the impact of PBIS. What is PBIS? PBIS is a process through which pre-K through 12th grade school teams can install evidence-based practices for youth social, emotional, and behavioral development within their multi-tiered system of support framework. Now I'll pause for a moment and reflect on early childhood and pre-K. The pyramid model is the pathway to developmentally appropriate PBIS in early childhood and pre-K. So for today, we'll be focusing on K-12 school settings. What is PBIS? When I first learned about PBIS more than 20 years ago, I learned about it as what we do for all, what we do for some, and what we do for a few on our campus, the all, some, few strategy. We layer on supports for students as needed. We actually know quite a lot about encouraging desired behavior on our campuses, so we build our behavior core systems. I like to equate this with reading and math. We have core reading instruction, we have core math instruction, core social studies instruction. If you were to ask a school campus what's their core behavior curriculum, core behavior instruction, most people would be like core behavior. We want to develop core behavior structures and teach desired behavior in the same way that we approach any other subject area in school. We know quite a bit about what we can do to encourage desired behavior, to discourage desired behavior. We define, teach, practice, and acknowledge those behaviors, and we set up responses that are instructional and restorative in nature. This is about what we do for students, not about students. We're talking about what we do on our campuses. And we also do these things at the core inside of all of our classrooms. Teachers have classroom management plans. They define, teach, acknowledge, they supervise. They have systems for responding in their classrooms, and they analyze what's happening in their classrooms. Now, as we do these great things for 100% of the students, all on our campus, as we analyze data, we may discover that up to 20% of students need something a little bit more. They just need a little bit higher dose. And so we may layer on some evidence-based practices, small group instructional practices for students. That may include some social skills group, that may include some academic skills group, that may include some behavioral skills group. We layer that on top of the good things that we're already doing for 100% of our students. So we determine what we have in place to meet the needs of the students on our campus. And then as we're analyzing data, we may discover that we still have a few students who need highly intensive, highly individualized instruction. And those students may require functional behavioral assessments and behavior intervention plans. So we have to determine what do we have for the few students on our campus who might need highly intensive supports. The all, some, few method, layering on instruction, increased instruction intensity, and increased intervention and support as needed. PBIS is a systems change process. You will see these three words in PBIS all the time: data, systems, and practices. Data, systems, and practices. We have to have some data to guide our decision making, to know where we are, to determine where we want to go, and if we're getting there. We have evidence-based practices that the staff members do with students, but the staff members need the systems in order to implement those evidence-based practices. As an example, we could have a practice of acknowledging desired behavior on our campus. That's the evidence-based practice that we do for students. But the adults need to know how, when, where, why we do this practice. They need the system established and the structures and support to implement those practices effectively so we can get to incredible academic and behavioral outcomes for the students. Our goal here is to have a positive teaching and learning environment where students feel safe and happy, as do teachers. This is about adult behavior change, structure change, environmental change, context change. This is not about changing students. Here are some critical features of PBIS. On our campus, we have to have a shared vision where we're going. We all have to be on the same page. We need to have a unified philosophy and approach to behavior. We're doing a shift in thinking. Historically, we might have had zero tolerance policies. We might have had punitive policies, reactive responses to behavior. And we're trying to shift our thinking to positive, preventative, and proactive approaches to behavior. We have to come to mutual agreements about the plan on our campus. This is from students, staff, families, and stakeholders. We all want to be on the same page and together. Then we build our behavior core and we have collective ownership of it. It's going to look different from one campus to another campus to another campus, as it should meet the needs of that particular school and that particular community. We also want to create a common language across all adults on our campus. That means cafeteria staff, custodial staff, office staff members, as well as academic staff members and paraprofessionals. A common language. A quick history lesson. PBIS is not new. PBIS, in the 1980s, there was a need for effective behavior interventions, and some researchers, including some brilliant people at the University of Oregon, like Jeff Sprague, Rob Horner, and George Chagai, realized as they were doing their research that prevention was the key. Intervention happens after there's a concern, and prevention was the key. In the 1990s, the Center for PBIS at PBIS was established, and there was an intense focus on the data, systems, and practices needed to encourage desired behavior from students on our campuses and to improve school climate. In the 2000s, the blueprints for implementation were developed, fidelity checks were established, and more than 20,000 schools nationally are implementing PBIS, along with a multitude of other schools internationally. Why? Because ESSA says that PBIS is a level 1 practice that shows strong evidence supported by one or more well-designed, well-implemented, randomized controlled experimental studies. PBIS makes an impact. What are some of those impacts? PBIS results in increased academic performance, increased social emotional competence, self-management, self-regulation, self-awareness, responsible decision-making from students. It increases pro-social behavior. PBIS results in decreased bullying, high-risk behaviors, and office referrals. PBIS has demonstrated improved school climate, improved organizational health of our schools, and improved perceptions of school safety. For information on the research behind the impacts of PBIS, you can go to pbis.org and look for the evidence behind PBIS. PBIS is positive, preventive, proactive. It's student-driven, student-centered. It's about what we do. It's educator-focused, developing systems to support us as we do our work on our campuses. It's instructional in nature, which is what school is all about, and it's restorative. Some of the first words I heard when I was introduced to PBIS is, does the discipline system on your campus, as it currently stands, restore academic achievement, social relationships, and the environment? And that's where we're trying to get as we shift our thinking about how we approach behavior on our campuses. So we hope that through today's session, you can describe PBIS and how it fits within the MTSS framework, that you identified a few critical features of PBIS, and that you examined the impact of PBIS. We look forward to seeing you at the next 10-minute tidbit.